God has specifically chosen you to be here at this time and in this place. You have incredible potential, purpose, and calling to push back the darkness and be a light for Christ. Stand for nothing and you'll fall for anything. It's time to stand your ground. This is Unapologetic. Hi everyone, welcome to Unapologetic. I'm so excited because today I'm interviewing Amy Weatherly and Jess Johnson on friendships. And not just any friendships, we're talking about female friendships and friendships in the teenage years. So very excited to speak with both of them. They have the best-selling book, I'll Be There, but I'll Be Wearing Sweatpants. It is a super fun conversation, and I know that you will enjoy today's episode. Hi.
Thank you for having us, Julia.
So fun to be here.
So let's just start out because people may not know. I mean, do y'all live in the same town? Y'all seem like you must be best friends if you're writing books on friendship.
We actually don't even live in the same state. When we actually got started with this whole thing, we had never met in person. We had just met online. We talked on the phone and just kind of went from there.
Oh my goodness.
We wish we lived in the same town.
So y'all liked each other's posts, or I mean, how did?
So we both write, and we were doing our own thing, and we were in the same writing group, so I think we followed each other just because we wrote for one of the same pages, and we're in this writing group together. And I was it started with I was just a fan of Jess's. I really liked her work, and I liked her demeanor, and I liked the way she wrote. And I don't know, it was like a magnet just called me to her. And so I kind of slid into her DMs and just was like, hey, I really like what you do.
Yeah.
I really like what you do. I'm a big fan. And so then we just, I always tell people, I'm like, if you ever want to meet somebody or you're looking to strike up a conversation, you just start with a compliment because people tend to like that. People tend to like compliments. So you just start with a compliment, and then the conversation went from there. And one day I just had
compliments.
Right? Who doesn't like compliments? Just start with that.
Right.
I just kind of had this idea, I was in the middle of nothing. Jess and I talked about friendship a lot. I think we're both going through friendship stuff at the time. So that's just kind of what we talked about. And all of a sudden I just had an idea. I think it was just a little God moment that, hey, and I called up Jess and I was like, Jess, I think we need to start a page called Sister, I'm With You. I think it needs to be all about friendship. I don't think anybody else is doing it. Are you in? And Jess was, yes. And so the whole idea was birthed in about 5 minutes.
Okay, So before we get into that, I want to ask y'all, what do you wish Christians would stop apologizing for?
I wish they would stop apologizing for our need for each other, our need for friendship, and pretending like we should be able to get all our needs met in other ways. Like, we do need each other. We're made that way. We're made for friendship.
How do you think that, how does that practically play out? Because most people wouldn't raise their hand and be like, I don't need any friends. But you're right. That definitely is something people live as if.
Well, we see it a lot in our online communities too, where if people have been really hurt and, which is understandable, they're hurt, they're jaded. It almost is like a self-protective wall people put up. I think that's well, I'm just finding my peace in the Lord, which obviously is amazing and so good and important. But it's okay to admit that it hurts, and it's okay to admit that we need each other and that we're longing for community.
I think it's pretty confusing when people are hurt by other Christians. To me, that seems it's a little deeper because we do have the understanding of the gospel and how we're supposed to, hopefully we have some understanding of how we're supposed to treat one another. How have you, either of you, both of you, how have you seen this specifically play out among Christians?
Well, I think it doesn't come down to anybody trying to live outside of the Bible and anybody trying to do wrong. We're humans, though. We're humans and we will mess up. And life is messy. And sometimes without trying to, we just step on each other's toes because we don't think the same. We don't feel the same. We weren't all raised the same. We have different personalities. So of course, sometimes there's conflict. And it doesn't matter whether you're a Christian or not a Christian, there's conflict because we're humans. And because being a human, it's kind of different for each of us. And so I think a lot of it is unintentional. And it just happens. It's just part of living, is that we're going to step on each other's toes sometimes, that we have to figure out how to do it together, even when it's hard.
We're walking around with these wounds we don't even know we have. And then we have adult friendships or teenage friendships or whatever. And people, without even knowing it, poke those wounds. And we're just raw. We're broken people.
I know we talked about before we started airing about us both being pastors' daughters, and I was just kind of thinking about church culture. I mean, much less likely to confront. Like if someone hurt you, much less likely to have that happen where someone's going to come confront, but really to the point where then you can have an honest conversation and try to heal. It's much more passive aggressive, it seems, a little bit in our culture. And so I was just kind of wondering, do y'all have a way that you suggest for women or teenagers to handle when there is hurt among friends, instead of just pretending like everything's okay and one day you look up and you're not friends anymore?
I think one big thing is we could start by acknowledging that we're hurt. Like I feel like growing up, and I don't know if it's from growing up in the church or just growing up as a girl, a woman, if I was hurt, it was like, well, something's wrong with me. Like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I shouldn't be bothered by this. I should just get over it. But some stuff can be solved so simply. And coming to someone with questions, like I do this with my friends now. Like, when you said this, I heard this. Is that what and that hurt my feelings? Is that what you meant? And just giving opportunity and space. And most, like 98% of the time, they're like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. No, that's not what I meant. Because we do have these unspoken wounds we're carrying around. Oftentimes we hear or we perceive stuff from other people that is not, it has everything to do with something they're going through and nothing to do with us. So it's just like, it doesn't have to, you don't have to go in like, all right, you hurt my feelings and we're going to talk about this. It doesn't need to be like that. I feel like going in with a question and trusting that your friends do care about you and they do love you, and being like, I'm really struggling with this. Can we talk about it? I think it's a really good way to handle it.
And realizing everyone doesn't have the same level of comfortability talking about things. I mean, I have some people in my life where that's totally fine. If I was like, hey, like, just so you know, like, this is a huge wound. It's something I'm working on. But whenever this happens, like, and just having a totally like open conversation. And then there are people like, they're just not on that level with you, or they're not on that level with themselves in general. And so kind of understanding where people are coming from too. And I know y'all speak to this. Everyone is not on the same level. How do you say it? Like everyone is not the same level of closeness, right? As a friend, and that's okay. So instead of trying to make everyone be someone that you can confide in, someone you have those really open, deep conversations with, there's people that are kind of in different categories. Can y'all explain that? I know that that's a big part of your message.
Yeah, well, there's actually a scientific like a theory to kind of back this up, and it's called Dunbar's. And he was studying chimpanzees, and he just kind of noticed the way that they would grow and then break off and kind of how it would happen. So he sort of translated it to humans, and he just kind of found that we as a whole, and this is just a generalization, we're all different, but we kind of have the capacity for like 5 really, really, really close people in our life. And that's people that we're keeping in touch with almost daily, like very, very close. And that's going to include your spouses and your kids.
I only have room for 5. One then.
Right. And that's probably true. That's probably true. Is like, how many people do you have and it's just a matter of capacity. It doesn't have to do with how much you like somebody. It doesn't have to, it's just a matter of capacity. This is what we can hold. If you're really extroverted, you can have 7, but again, you're limited. And then from that 5, they found that it goes to about I think it's 15. So these would be the people that, like, if you're throwing a birthday party, this is about how many people you would probably invite. They're good friends. You don't necessarily talk every day, but you really value them in your life. You know each other on a deeper level. And then after that, it jumps all the way to 150. And that's probably like the number of people that you send your Christmas cards out to. And then from that 150, it goes to like 2,000 people that you are acquaintances with that you recognize and know. So, I mean, it's just a matter of capacity, and we get our feelings hurt. And I know it changed. The game kind of changed for me when I was like, oh, Amy, it's fine. She doesn't not like you. You're just not in her top 5. That's fine. That's okay. That's fine. But a lot of our hurt comes from when we are in someone's top 5, and then we move down to that 15, and we have a hard time really processing that and kind of dealing with it, you know?
Well, that brings it is hard, of course, to see your children struggling. How do you stay encouraged as a mom whenever you see hurtful things happening? Because, I mean, some things are neutral, but I mean, some things really are hurtful that we watch kids go through, and people do get intentionally left out. What's your best advice for moms, like, just especially with that hurt and loneliness?
One thing I had something just yesterday when my little girl's heart was just broken about something, and it's worse than going through it yourself, you know. But I kind of, in my mind, I'm like, try to switch it a little bit, where I was like, okay, but I get to be there for her in a way right now that I don't get to be there for her when everything's going good and when everything's fun. I get to hold her and comfort her in this moment. And it's actually really precious that I get to be there for her in this vulnerable moment. And this is a good life lesson. Like, life is not perfect. We have pain and hurt and disappointments, but trying to cherish those moments, I guess.
I think it's important too, is you have to try not to take their pain and make it your pain and make it about you. You're not the center of this, they are. And so as hard as it is for you, and as much as it also hurts you, I would never want my child to feel the added burden of, oh, now mom's sad, I shouldn't have told her. Yeah. And oh, now my mom is sad and I need to make her happy. No. This is yours. I'm not the center of this, and I am a safe space to listen and to learn and to have space for you and to encourage you and hopefully teach you. And then maybe I take that hurt and I go talk to my husband about it, you know, about the way I'm hurting, or I go talk to my friends. I think are a really good place for that. And I hope that I hope that I personally have built friendships that my friends love my kids and are like, that they know, okay, Amy's daughter's hurting, I'm going to go love on her extra today. I think is a good thing, you know, just to make sure that you don't make it about you when it is really about your child.
Yeah. Yeah, that is good. I know there's also the added tendency to over spiritualize. So I know that, like, for me, it was a lot of, well, that's because this person doesn't have this background, or that's because this is going on. It doesn't have anything about you. And I know when I was growing up, I just wanted to hear, yeah, that was terrible. Like, I'm sorry that happened to you. So I think that our generation of parents, much more like us, we know a lot more about emotions and emotional intelligence. But I think it very much used to be just kind of explaining it away of, well, that's why this happened. They probably just forgot. And really empathizing is kind of a newer idea, to empathize with a little kid or with a teenager. That's not really something that was modeled in previous generations. How have y'all seen empathizing be important in this friendship discussion?
Well, I mean, when you're dealing with other people, and I was thinking about this the other day, there is no way to be a good friend and to not think about the other person's experience. And to not think about how they're going to take things. You know, like I always, a relationship is kind of like you're throwing a ball back and forth. And if you're not thinking, hey, are they capable of catching this? What is catching this going to look like for them? You're being kind of selfish there. And it's not going to, a friendship is not going to work if it doesn't go both ways. It's not going to work if you don't know how to think about their feelings, or just try to understand. And you're not always going to know. And I think sometimes that's okay too, is to say, I haven't been there. I don't know what it's like but I am going to, there's a good quote about it, but I'm going to accept your version of this. Does that make sense? Instead of being
Yeah.
like, oh, this is what I would do in that situation. Oh, this is how I would feel.
Mm-hmm.
Again, you're making yourself the center, and you're not the center. They're the center. But it's kind of say like, whatever you're going through, I accept your version of this. Like what you're telling me, I'm going to believe that and just sit with you in it. I'm going to sit with you and believe with you.
Okay, I'm going to, I mean, I am a mom, but I'm going to try to ask the questions that I know the moms listening want to know. So it's going to be like rapid fire, okay? All right. How do you, new girl or a girl at a new school, how does she make friends?
I would say, first of all, Amy talks about this a lot. Instead of looking for the other girls that have a ton of friends already, look for the outsiders. Look for someone else who might be lonely. Another thing that you can do is go in with compliments. Go in with, hey, I love your shoes. I love your jacket, things like that, just to start a conversation.
That's great. Amy, do you have anything else with that?
Just look for the outsiders is something I just like preach all the time. Because again, it goes back to capacity so much of the time is we like see somebody whose like cup is full and we like try to force our way in. You really look for someone else on the outside. Look for someone who has the capacity to be a good friend.
I told my daughter that recently. I was like, there are other girls that are looking and needing friendship at your school. I promise.
And even if you're new, friendship is a gift and you still have that to give. So give it. And instead of looking for someone to be your friend, you go be your friend. That is a gift. So you go give it, even if you're new.
Oh, I love that. That's wonderful. Okay, what about lasting friendships? How would someone, I know that's a topic of yours, how does a girl develop those lasting friendships? I was just with my friend last night. She just had a devastating occurrence in her family. We've been friends since we were 5. I mean, she's just one of my lifers, and she's had we both have had a lot of other people come in our lives since then. But I mean, there was something really about being with your 5-year-old friend. And I don't know if I know some secret to how that happened. What do you all say about lasting friendships?
I would say we've got to keep being intentional and investing in the friendships that matter to us in our lives. We can't just if you don't water a plant, it will die. But we also, there does have to be a certain level of release because we don't always know the friendships that will last forever and the ones that are just seasonal. And that can be really hard to let that go. But then there's those friendships. I try and look in my life and I say, okay, who are the friends that God's brought in my life in this season? And who do I want to prioritize and invest in? And so if you are, I've had one of my closest friends it's been about 13 years, but that if I just stopped investing in her at some point, we would definitely grow apart,
I think too, I know for me personally, I've actually tried to change the way that I think about it because the thought of having this friendship needs to last forever, that is a lot of pressure and you are only responsible for you. You can't even control them and you can't control what's happening around. You can only control you. So that's a lot of pressure. So I've actually tried really hard to change the way I look at it. And instead of saying, okay, well, how can I make this last forever? How can I cling on to them? I just say, how can I make this friendship full of love right now? And if we focus on the right now and the present, it's going to tend to grow and it's going to tend to build. And if it doesn't, we have to be okay with that too. And instead of looking back with bitterness and anger and resentment, saying, but it was full of goodness while it lasted. And I will rejoice in that. I will appreciate what it was and let go of what it isn't right now. Because sometimes I just think the pressure of making it last forever is hard. That's a lot because sometimes it's just not going to be forever. And that's okay.
And change.
It's really rare that it is, but it's beautiful when it does. And sometimes, I have a friend, going through a hard time right now, and we've been friends our entire lives. And honestly, it was just good luck. Our parents were good friends. We were good friends, and I think we have to remember too, if you're going to have a friendship last forever, there's going to have to be a whole lot of grace. There will have to be a whole lot of grace because there will be a time they get mad at you. There will be a time you get mad at them. There will be a time where you may just not be feeling each other, and you kind of have to have grace to get through that.
Yeah.
That was long. I'm sorry.
So
No, that's so good. No, it's true. I mean, every friendship's not going to last forever. And so realizing that and taking the pressure off is it's really good. I guess I was kind of thinking about a lot of teenagers switch. Like they switch groups a lot. Like,
Oh, yeah.
you're my best friend today. You're my best friend tomorrow. Or the opposite's true. They became best friends when they were one and they're not making space for one more person. So I wonder how one of the best ways or what is an effective way to explain really to teenagers the importance of friendship and loyalty, but also allowing, of course, room for new people.
I think one of the big things we can do is teach our kids to be honest about our friendships and to really be open to what God might be saying about friendships. Because also we can cling on to friendships for too long sometimes. Like maybe you're prioritizing somebody in your life that's actually kind of mean or
Right.
who is not. Do you feel, I think Amy talked about this at one point, do you feel filled up when you're with this person? Like you don't have to stay in close relationship with someone just because that's what you've always done. Because if you only invest in that friendship, you only have so much to give. So you can
Yeah.
only invest so much, but it's good to be honest and be like, yes, I still love them a lot, but I'm not super filled up in this season when I'm around them. So it is okay to look around me and see what other friendships I might invest in also.
Something else too that is really important to that, and I think we have a tendency to do that, is parents, especially nowadays, we don't want our kids to suffer. We don't want our kids to hurt. We don't want our kids to make mistakes. And so we almost try to like over parent them and over coddle them. And I think that is hurting them in the long run. I think sometimes we let them make mistakes. I think sometimes we let them make their own decisions and learn from it, like have some natural consequences of, hey, you kind of ignored this person for a long time. You weren't necessarily a good friend to them. And now you want to go back, but they're not there. And you definitely sit there and you probably don't do the I told you so thing. But
Stroking their hair. I mean, I did tell you so.
I don't
Thanks, Mom.
like try not to wear your Mama Knows Best t-shirt in that moment. But I think sometimes that's how we all learn best. I mean, we can teach our kids all we want to, and we can say the right words, and we can read the right books. And when they make a mistake, be there for them and love on them. But sometimes we got to let them fall sometimes too. And because that's how we all learn best. That's how we all learn best. We will not make the same mistake again if we've, actually kind of messed up. So I don't think we can save our kids from every hurt. And I don't think we should. I think letting them mess up is okay too.
I kind of want to end with this idea because, of course, there are mean girls, and that's definitely what I think a lot of moms of teenage girls are concerned about. I mean, whenever the hurt is too much, and I mean, as a therapist, I mean, it's unbelievable the consequences of really deadly consequences of sometimes being left out or being made fun of. And so can you all just speak to two things? Because I know that you addressed this. What do you do if you realize that maybe you're raising a mean girl? And then secondly, of course, not normal consequences of normal friendships, but I mean, when there really is a problem, how do you protect your child?
Oh, that's so hard. High school was rough for me. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, obviously I've grown and got past it, but I did not have a lot of friends in high school. I'm not going to get into it, but high school was hard. Yeah. It was hard. And I look back and I'm like, I was so nice. I think I was just an easy target because I was nice. I was never going to fight back. I was never going to, I wasn't going to, I just kind of took it. Maybe that may be an easy target. I don't know. But high school was hard. God, I don't know if you have the mean girl. I think you try to look at it as, okay, she hasn't learned yet. And how can I help her learn? How can I help her learn? How can I help her see that when you jump into a pool, that water gets everywhere, and that water can really hurt the people around you, and that matters.
Yeah.
That matters. The kind of splash you're leaving. And teach, how do you teach them? You got to teach them to take ownership of it.
Yeah.
And you've got to believe that they are capable of changing, and that maybe they're not a mean girl. Maybe they're just a girl who hasn't learned yet.
Yeah.
She's clearly, if she's mean, she's feeling something. So what is she feeling that is causing those actions? Is it her own insecurity that is causing those? I think you've got to work really hard to get to the root of what is actually the cause of this. Is it pride? Is it insecurity? Is she on social media too much? Because honestly, social media is a mess, and that is a hard place for teenagers. And that is one of the first things I would do if my kid was really having a hard time is, okay, social media is gone for 2 weeks. Take a break. Because that's what I do. If I'm in a bad place mentally, social media is the first thing I get rid of. And it helps most of the time. Not all the time. It helps most of the time.
Yeah.
Social media is a rough playground. But I think, I don't know what I was saying, but I think you just kind of have to help her learn if you're raising a mean girl, and you can't ignore it. You can't ignore it. I think you've got to help her take ownership of that.
You've got to take ownership as a mom and be like, okay, this is a real problem I'm dealing with. I'm not going to pretend it away or excuse it away.
Yeah.
I'm going to take ownership that this is something that's happening in my house with my kid. And then I think teaching our daughters to clean up their mess. Like if you're hurting someone, if you've hurt someone, what can you do to clean up your mess with them? And teaching them responsibility and ownership.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so good. Okay, we could talk forever. Y'all are going to have to come back because there's so much more to talk about. But
there's so much on friendship.
Can y'all just tell us, how can we find your books? Definitely let the audience know the book titles because they are hysterical. I love them. But can y'all go ahead and just tell our listeners where to find you and your books?
The book for adults, and honestly, it's good for teenagers too. I can't think of anything in there that a teenager can't. There's, I guess, some adult things that maybe they can't relate to, but the book that I would say is for teenagers and adults is called I'll Be There, but I'll Be Wearing Sweatpants. And it's just about finding friendships, and finding good friendships, and kind of that the only way you find those good friendships is being yourself and learning who you are, and being comfortable in that will help you find the deep, true, solid friendships. And then our book that is releasing, and you can get that anywhere pretty much. It's at Target, it's in Barnes & Noble, it's on Amazon. I'll Be There, but I'll Be Wearing Sweatpants. And then, and we just found out this week that we have sold 100,000 copies of it.
Congratulations.
So, thank you. It's a good group. It's a good book for women to study in groups too. And then we've got a tween version coming out for 8 to 12-year-olds called I'll Be There and Let's Make Friendship Bracelets that comes out in November.
So cute. That's awesome. Well, thank you all so much for being on. Thank you for your heart for friendships. It's definitely something that we all, of course, need and can be difficult to navigate. But thank you all for leading this and being on the show today.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, thank you for having us, Julia. This was great. Sorry about the dogs.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of Unapologetic. Remember that you can hear today's episode and more at ptv.org/Julia and wherever you get your podcasts.